Welcome to the Childcare Genius Podcast, the world's leading authority on childcare marketing, mindset, expansion, and profitability. Each episode will feature interviews with the brightest minds in the childcare industry to guide you into becoming a smarter business leader. Our hosts have opened 10 schools while raising 5 children. They are certified business coaches and are the top-selling childcare business book authors of all time. This episode is sponsored by Childcare Genius Marketing. Let Childcare Genius Marketing help you get fully enrolled and fully staffed. Visit childcaregenius.com for more details. Let's welcome to the Childcare Genius Podcast our hosts, Brian and Carol Dupre.
Hello, and welcome to the Childcare Genius Podcast. I am Sindye Alexander, filling in this week for Brian Dupre, who is taking a little bit of time off. I'm here today with Christine McNally, and Christine is the owner of Under the Magic Pine Tree. She has 3 locations in Nevada. She's also a professor or business coach on the Childcare Genius University team, and she works with our directors. And so she has got a wealth of knowledge and experience to bring to us today, and I hope you enjoy listening to our conversation. Christine, I'd love for you just to reintroduce yourself to our listeners. I know many people might be familiar with you already, but we're getting new listeners every day. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into childcare.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sindye. Well, my name is Christine McNally, and me and my husband, Wade, own Under the Magic Pine Tree. We opened our newest location recently, so now we have 3 locations in Northern Nevada. But my story started in 1998 with our son, who was about 6-8 months old, and we did not have a great experience in a childcare facility. And so one day I sent him to daycare with a little marker on the back of his diaper just to see, because I had some suspicions. And when I came back from work, it was, I don't know, like 9 hours later, he was in the same diaper. He had been left alone in a room, and he was turning purple because he had been crying for so long, and everybody was outside. And this happened to be a close friend of mine's mother's facility. And I just decided I can't ever take him back there. So I called my mom and told her what had happened, and she said, just open your own. So that's what I did. I got started in 1998. A couple months later, opened my own in-home and kind of grew from there. In 2019, met Brian, and he helped me purchase Under the Magic Pine Tree, and that's where I'm at from there. The story goes, that's how it goes. So that's kind of how I got into this profession. And along the way, I decided I was going to go back to school. So I took a little hiatus in 2005 and went back to school and had more kiddos of my own and got my degree in evolution, actually. But when I came back to the field and we opened our locations in Northern Nevada, I also got my degree in early childhood. So that's kind of where I am now. And now I get to do one of the best jobs in the world. Well, 2 of the best jobs in the world. I get to drive my passion for the Reggio approach and, growing our future generation with inspiration and wonder and curiosity. And I get to coach directors and leaders of childcare all over the country so that they can live their best lives and be their best in their businesses.
I love hearing that story, and I think partly because I see so many similarities in my own journey. I started in home childcare, when my little ones, fortunately, I didn't have a bad experience with childcare. I just really wanted to be with them, when they were younger. So it was kind of the driving force that got me into it. And then, along the way, developed a passion for it, and it became a career versus just something I was doing to, kind of make ends meet. And that was a really, really happy revelation to me when I realized I was already doing what I loved and, in an industry that I loved and was very passionate about. And then, we grew into larger centers. And you're in an expansion journey right now. I would like for you to talk a little bit about your expansion path, maybe some of the grants or the special tricks that you were able to access, or, strategies to employ to be able to grow as quickly as you have. And, it's a cool journey. So just you tell it.
Well, we took over Under the Magic Pine Tree in May of 2019. It's in this location is in a rural town called Gardnerville, Nevada. And, the shutdown happened in March. So we hadn't even been open a year yet. And we went from like 98% full to, I think it was like 21 on a Friday to Monday at 21% full. Like it was crazy. So I had to shift and I had to pivot, and all that funding got thrown into early childhood. And I know some of the neighboring states didn't do exactly like California didn't. That's where I had started my journey in early childhood. And then we moved to Nevada. And I'm a little thankful that I did, because some of the funding didn't get funneled the same way in other states. And so when it was being funneled to us, we did tips and strategies that we learned through coaching to sustain our business and continue to grow. And the funding that came in, we really used to prepare for the future, I guess. And so it set us up in a way that we were able to sustain our business and then come out from it in a place that was really a good place. Our second location was I learned about just through connections. I make connections with so many people, and it was a connection that I had through a program that we were partnering with at the first location. And she said, "Hey, I know you want to expand, and I know this owner that wants out. So do you want me to connect you guys?" And I said, "Yeah, I would love that." So I got to talking to this lady, and she just wanted to retire from childcare. And she was actually much younger than me, but she wanted out of the childcare business and wanted to become a kindergarten teacher. She wanted to go teach kindergarten and not run a business anymore. And so one day she handed us the keys, we signed the lease, and we took over that location. And then along the way, there was a kind of around the same time, there was a grant program that came out with the expansion, the funding from the ARPA funding, the COVID funding, had an expansion component for states to expand childcare. And in our state, it was going to be very significant. And so I applied for that grant during this whole expansion thing I was doing. And we were one of only 18 that were awarded in the entire state. So we won a $1 million grant to expand location 1 and double the capacity. So my first location's capacity, it's licensed for 48. It's capped at 45 because of our pre-K classroom size, group size. And then now it's going to be somewhere between 84 and 92. It depends on when state comes out and measures when it's all said and done. We're almost done. We actually got told that the contractor is going to be done a month early. So October 31st is supposed to be our final walkthrough for permitting.
It is unheard of. Construction getting done early.
I know. If anybody's in Nevada and wants to know who my contractor is, I'm telling him to everybody. So, and then through this journey, you have to choose the right people, right? I didn't choose the right architect and engineering company. And so that took 2 years to get that going to where I am now with that expansion. In the meantime, since 2019, when we first came to Nevada, I have had a broker looking for real estate. And I don't know if you guys are familiar, but most of Nevada is owned by BLM land, which is the Bureau of Land Management. Most of it, like 80 or 85%, I can't remember. It's a really high number. It's not privately owned. So there's not very much land. In fact, a couple of years ago, there was a news article that came out that said the county that I'm in was going to run out of land by 2026, private land, unless BLM released some of the land to the county so that they could continue to develop and grow. So it's really hard to find real estate here and really hard to find it that fits in an area where it needs to be. I'm sure it's that way in a lot of other places, but it took us a long time. So not this June, but last June, my broker said, "Hey, I think I found something. Let's go take a look." A 6,000 square foot building that was a private school for a private Christian school. And the lady wanted to retire. Her children and grandchildren had moved to Greece and she wanted to go with them. So we bought that location and it opens next month. So that's kind of where we're at right now with that.
So what is that one going to be licensed for?
That one is licensed for 118. Yeah.
So
It's
you are
gonna,
just in expansion mode. And really, it
yeah,
sounds like from the time that you moved, your childcare to Nevada, you have just kind of exploded, like as far as
yes,
growth and momentum. And that's what I love to hear. I love to hear that
yes,
because it just means that you have a passion and you bring an energy to the industry and, your eyes are on it. And so you had mentioned, your philosophy, the Reggio Emilia, and you had a really unique opportunity and experience in that regard recently. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
yeah. My daughter went to do study abroad for her senior year, and she was in Florence, Italy, because she was studying international relations, and that's where that program was for the international program. So we knew from the time she graduated high school that her senior year, that's what she wanted to do. So for 4 years, we saved because I was like, you know, Reggio Emilia is only an hour and a half train ride from Florence. And I've always wanted to go do their study program, right? So and she was in class. So it's not like we could just go there and spend a few weeks with her or something like that, because she's in class during the week. So we really only got the weekends with her. So we saved and we went and did the international study program in Reggio Emilia, spent some time in Florence with our daughter, went up there, spent some time up there, and then went to Rome to cap it off. But yeah, we got to spend a whole week doing the international study program. It was amazing. It totally, you go sometimes you academically learn things like if you haven't done school, you go to school and you learn things academically, but real life application is really something that could be different. We all know that we get those teachers, you interview those teachers and
Mhm.
they're like, "I have my bachelor's degree." And you're like, "Oh, this is going to be great." Yeah. Everything's theory. They have no skill. Right. So that's kind of
Yeah. Mhm.
what we were wondering when we went to Reggio Emilia. We were like, are we on the right path with this? Because we've only learned Reggio from American instructors who learned Reggio, and they weren't probably people that went to Reggio. So when we went, we were pleasantly surprised that we had a good grasp and handle on it, but got a deeper dive into the whole philosophy, and it really inspired us and invigorated our passion for it. And that was right before the second location opened. So it really was like a prime time to go and be
Yeah, the timing on
re-inspired.
that is perfect. And yeah, sometimes there's just nothing that can replace a live in-person experience with something like that. You know, i- and in this world, we're so into like digital learning, and like I live my life on Zoom half the time because everybody that I talk to, is across the world or across the country. And it's great to connect with people that way, but there's nothing like being in person and getting that hug or feeling the vibe with each other in the room or,
Mhm.
you know, and so I can just imagine being at the place where the philosophy of your whole program was founded, being there and seeing it and, getting that confirmation that you're on the right track and then further inspiration, to move it forward. I just can't imagine how amazing that would have felt. So
Yeah.
congratulations that you were able to have that experience. It's amazing. So with that in mind, and I feel like the answer might be pretty easy for this, but like how do you translate your passion down into your staff and into your parents and build that trust that is needed, to form the relationships needed, for this type of business? Like what do you do to build trust with people?
I think you have to remember they're people, right? You have to treat them like people. They're human beings. And I think sometimes, we all hear the boss story of the boss that was the tyrant boss, right? Or we've all had the tyrant boss story ourselves, right? And that's not my philosophy. That's not how I lead. I lead with these are people, right? These are human beings. And whether it's little human beings or big human beings, they're all human beings. So having a little bit of compassion, but then also having some of that authenticness, and being able to translate that trust and that my expertise, because people come into the field, at least in our state, and they just have to have graduated high school and pass their background checks. There aren't very many requirements. So when they come into it, they really have no idea what's happening, what's going on. So I really set the tone for leading them and what the expectations are and how that translates into what we do. We call it the pine tree way, right? It's the way we do things. And then as far as with families, just finding a connection, because even with your staff, like connections are just the most important thing, whether you're the teacher in the classroom, you're a child in the classroom, whether you're the leader of the organization or you're the parent, like making connections is the most important thing. So you have to really be able to navigate that to find a way to connect with people. And I like to tell stories and I like to find out more about them, and all those things kind of really build that connection and build that trust.
I love that. And you brought out two really important things. And I love how you call it the pine tree way, but that just demonstrates that you're striving for consistency. And when people know what to expect from you and they get that over and over and over, as far as like quality of service or type of schedule or how often their child's diapers get changed and things like that, when they get that consistently, that builds trust. When you go to Burger King and order a Whopper, you trust that you're going to get a Whopper and not a Big Mac, right? Because you've come to expect the way they deliver their service, their hamburgers, right? So that's really important. And then the connection piece is so important. You cannot have a relationship and you cannot work with people if you cannot figure out how to make connections. So I love that you drive that into your team, because if they can build those connections with your parents, that goes to longevity of enrollments, etc. So I love that. Do you do anything extra with your staff or, just with your enrollment process that really creates an amazing type of experience for families, a wow experience and over the top? Anything? Do you do anything special for families?
We do a lot of family, as far as enrollment goes. We have a whole system set up in our IKS that helps kind of drive and keep connections. And when families come in, the teachers know, like, especially that first week, you might have a first time parent, or you might have a parent that has 6 kids and this is number 6 and she's like, whatever, but it doesn't matter. Like in either end of the spectrum, our teachers know if I have a new child in my classroom, I'm giving extra love and attention to that parent that week. So they take extra photos and they send extra notes. And it's a little bit more work on their part, but they understand that it's really important that we make that connection and that first impression so that those parents can develop trust with us right away, right? So that parent that is, a little nervous dropping her child off or doesn't understand why transitions are a little rocky in the beginning, like she'll understand that, oh, you know what, they've got this, because we're communicating that, we're demonstrating that, we're showing that, and we're reaching out to them without them having to come to us.
So what if there comes a time where maybe like a little bit more of an uncomfortable situation or a tough conversation needs to be had with a parent? How do you and your staff handle those types of situations?
Well, those are typically done by it. Well, it depends on where we are in the process, right? So if it's something that the teacher is like, I'm not sure that this is something I can handle, we need to go to our director. Our directors are really good about, this is this is the pine tree way with the families too, right? So
Ooh.
sometimes
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we can navigate things so that they don't become an issue. We can see it already becoming an issue. Nap time, I feel like nap time is sometimes an issue. I see it online a lot with directors
Yeah.
asking, what do we do about this parent that doesn't want their kid to nap? So we have case studies. We have brain activity studies that show that children need sleep. Not only that, but in my state, we're required to offer a rest period. And if your child falls asleep, they needed it, right? So there's different ways that we navigate that with the families just to have those conversations. And very rarely anymore do I get involved with those. There's times where, my director might say, look, I don't know that this parent, we have had a parent that was, for example, they're not hotheads, they're just intense. That's the word I want to look for. Intense people, right? Dad was military, mom was a bodybuilder, super intense people. And she was like, I'm not comfortable doing this. I think they're really mad at me. And then I go in and I'm like, diffuse the situation. And it wasn't that they were mad, it was that their communication style was different than my director's communication style. And sometimes that takes just a little more finesse, right? So then I developed those skill in that director to be able to identify that so that the next time she has this, she can see they're not mad at me. They just communicate differently. So that's really important too, is to always be working on the communication within our staff so that when we have to have a difficult conversation, we can seamlessly do that.
Yeah, and you brought up some really great points that I just want to emphasize. And one is that you support your teachers by, the directors or leaders being willing to step in when the teachers don't feel like they have the right words or they're just not sure how to handle it. And then you've empowered your directors to go ahead and solve those issues without you having to be a part of every single thing, but you'll still step in and support them as well. So that sounds great. And then you bring it back to a standard, this thing we're all striving for, the Pine Tree Way. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it's done here. And if you want to be a part of the Pine Tree Way, this is how we're doing it. So you're doing a lot of things right. So I love that you're highlighting that. So thank you. Now, we just talked about like if you have a difficult situation, but do you do any host any special events or any committees, anything special to get the parents involved and just like exposing them more to what you do on a day-to-day or special honors or kudos? Just tell me about anything that you do in that regard.
Yeah, we do a lot of family engagement. Our schools are closed campuses, so people might find this weird, but I don't allow families to just wander through my school for drop off and pickup. We have a designated area that happens. And the reason for that is because you have to walk through a classroom to get to the next classroom. I had 2 times taking over 2 schools where people didn't know where children were before I had taken over the building. And so as a paranoid parent, that's just a no-go. So that's the Pine Tree Way, right? We have drop off and pick up in the lobby. The families that are with us, they all love it because it's a secured entry and everything. But what that does is it makes us come up with creative ways to build connections so that they still feel part of your school family. And we do that a lot. We partner with outside organizations because if it was all on my director or all on me or all on the teachers to do this, that would be too much. So I like to break it up. So sometimes we have parenting classes from the local children's cabinet, which is like our family resource and subsidy. They'll come in and do free classes. Snap Ed, if you're familiar with Snap Ed, they come and do health and wellness trainings with our staff. They give us Healthy Kids curriculum, but they also have a program where we've had them fund and give us a grant to put in a school garden, or they'll come in and do classes with the families, like cooking classes to teach how to make healthy snacks with your children. And then we ourselves will do the garden party in June of every year. We have to wait till June because we have a very short growing season. When people think of Nevada, they think of it as like this hot desert, but that's like Vegas, not Reno. So Reno, sometimes it'll snow in June, and then it starts snowing again, maybe in October. And so getting pumpkins is really hard. So we have this short growing season. So you have to, you have to have your garden party in June after everything is probably frozen. And then the families come and we put this garden together, or we have an open house, or we have an art gala at the end of the year in April where Reggio is very project based, and so we can show all the projects from the year that the families can come in and do projects. We have reading times where they can come in, and like this theme that's happening is, which I understand Reggio is not theme based, but because of our connection to the Office of Education, we have to tweak some things. So we have a theme-based curriculum we have to follow for that and Reggio-fy it. And so like this month, we're really focused on family. It's family and me. And so families are coming in and sharing their favorite stories with the children this month. We've had a dad come in and he's a singer in a band, and so he brought in his amp and his guitar, and he did a concert for the kids, and sang like their favorite Disney songs or whatever, and just exposing them to different things. So we invite them in to do things like that with us. So those are kind of some of the things that we do. We have like a little morning tea or whatever it is. So we have different events that we have them come in and do, and there's always something happening. So a couple times a month. And like I said, it's not always me, but really if you go out and you find those resources in your community, people will come and do them for you. So, and I don't always have to do them.
I loved having the outside groups come in, because like I call them in-house field trips, because I didn't take the kids out.
Yes.
But I would bring the pizza restaurant in, and they would make pizzas with the kids, or the nature preserve would bring in the snakes and the leaves and the pine cones to inspect, and stuff like that. And the kids really loved it. But I love how you are bringing the parents in, and you are finding ways to make those connections when they're not a part of the day-to-day, walking through the center, picking up. You're highlighting the key moments, and those are marketing activities as well as relationship building activities. So you've seemed to have hit a sweet spot. But one thing that you have mentioned several times in our conversation already is something about grants. You found grants to expand, to train, for parent engagement, stuff like that. You seem to be kind of the queen of finding and applying for and getting grants. Get a little pointer to anybody out there who might be looking to start or expand, or find resources for their already established school. How do they find these grants? What is the process? Just like as short and sweet as possible, but give us an idea, a direction to go in, and how you did it.
Most of the grant funding ended September 30th of 2024. So a lot of the grants that I was getting were through those COVID funds they were trying to get rid of, right? I had an expansion grant. I had a startup grant. I got $125,000 to put new furniture into my school. We got this pilot program through subsidy, and they gave us funding for our infant classrooms. So a lot of that was COVID stuff that they were giving out. So the grant funding that's happening now for profit is significantly less. But it does pop up once in a while, and I make connections all the time, right? So I have my fingers in everything in our state that's ECE. And so that's a lot of the times where I find it. We have a grant that we just got for health and wellness for our staff. Each center got $5,000, and we were able to bring in a trainer who did a wellness training with us. Then we're going to be providing other services to help with like mental health and that kind of thing. But we were given $5,000 to do so for each center. So that was one that we just recently got. I just got another grant opportunity for another $5,000 because we partner with about 6 different subsidy programs. And one of them is the ITCN. It's an Intertribal Council for the Native Americans. It's their subsidy program. If we attend an event, then we can get up to $5,000 stipend for our school. And then another one we did was the garden program. Now, SNAP Ed funding has been significantly cut with all the federal cuts. So some states may or may not have access to the same things that they used to. But our garden program, we got a $3,000 grant for partnering with SNAP Ed. A lot of this is just because we're part of the QRIS program. I know a lot of people are like, that's a headache. I don't want to do it. But this is how I find all this information. I utilize these resources. So I go to my QRIS coach and I say, I'm looking for this. And she goes and asks. And she might not know the answer, but she'll put me in touch with somebody else and say, hey, you maybe talk to them. And then I'll ask that person. And then they might not know the answer, but they're like, but I heard about this other thing. And so you should go talk to them. And so this is how all of this has come about, is just making connections with people. Recently, I got asked if I wanted to do location number 4 because a company wants to open childcare in their business for their employees. And that was done because of all of that, making connections. So I always say connections are the most important thing. And that's how all of this grant funding has come about.
It sounds like a lot of the grants that you described were kind of state government backed.
Yes.
Have you ever had any luck with any type of a grant that's like based on a corporation? I know I sometimes like certain foundations or corporations, they want to give back to education, or they want to help women-owned businesses, or because of you're in a historic district in your area, so you get like some kind of a building restoration grant, type of thing. Have you ever had any luck outside of government, or you've just found it through
Not really.
RIS? Okay.
Yeah, not really, because most of the time when you look, there's like strict stipulations. Like one time I found I wanted new shade structures, and I found one on skin cancer and skin cancer prevention for children. And so I wrote the grant, and I knew I wasn't going to get it because the requirements were K through 8th grade and we're pre-K, right? But I thought I'm going to take a chance and do it anyways. So I've written grants for organizations before. Most of the time, grants are reserved for nonprofit. So when you're for profit, there are out there, they're just going to be more difficult to get. And now that COVID funding has been depleted, it's not like it was before. So everybody that thinks, oh, I'm going to get a grant to open a new location, it's not going to happen anymore, unfortunately. But there are grants out there that are not government based, but they just take more work on your part to research and see where they are and if you can qualify for them.
Okay, so if you're looking for a grant, I think the most important thing you can do is connect with your local resource and referral agency person, your licensing consultant, your QRIS person, even maybe your food program person, somebody who's a little bit higher up than you in the food chain, who has a connection with a lot of other, interested parties, you know what I mean? Whether it's government or corporations, sometimes they hear about things before it trickles down to our level. So you make those connections, you'll have a better chance at finding out about when those opportunities come up. Because you're right, the COVID funding is gone, but even outside of COVID funding, there are grant opportunities that come up from time to time. They're just fewer and far between. So keep your ears out, because if you qualify, it's free money to improve your business and to help the children. So, okay. Thank you for that little rabbit trail that I went on. I'm always curious about that because, free money is always a bonus, right? Yeah, always a bonus. So you have mentioned a couple of times that you're in the midst of expansion. Has there been any specific challenge or hurdle that's kind of surprised you or caught you off guard in the process of expansion that you could give a heads up to any of our listeners that might be in that process?
I hate it.
You hate it.
I keep saying I'm never going to do this again, and then I keep doing it. It's a lot. Well, I think because I had 2 projects at the same time. My biggest thing is the right people, right? If you don't have the right people, it makes it 200 times more difficult to do. And our architect and engineering company we chose was not the right people. And it set us back 2 years. And I didn't realize it until we were already a year in. And there's no going back. You've already paid so much into this and put so much time and effort into this. And it's not like I'm paying for it through a grant, but it's not like I can just go, you're fired and we're moving on to somebody else, because then I'd have to start the process all over again, right? So that is the biggest hurdle that we've had, is making sure that you find the right people. Now, I found an amazing contractor who swooped in, saved the day, and was like, let me handle them, got us on track. And hey, he's going to be a month early done. So finding that right person was amazing. And I found him because I asked my families at my locations, hey, does anybody know we need a contractor to bid on this for the expansion for us in Gardnerville. Does anybody know? And a couple of our families were like, yeah, we have friends that do this. And so that's how we found him. And it's really important. You got to find the right people in that seat.
Right people. That is so important because, one person because you have to coordinate a lot of people in order to make an expansion happen. And one wrong cog or one misfit slows down the entire machine, of that expansion project. So that is so true. But, I have to confess, when you said, you have to have the right people, I was thinking in terms of your internal people. And I think that is so true as well, which kind of leads me into my next question is like, as you are growing, how are you maintaining the culture and the consistency throughout all of your programs? Is there some little secret tip or tidbit that you have done to make sure that is translated across all locations?
It's our systems. You have to have good systems. And when you go from 1 to 2, that's where you find, oh, my systems aren't that great, because you find all the loopholes or all the holes, right? The things that don't work great. And then when you go from 2 to 3, you might have to tweak something else, because what worked when you only had 2 isn't going to work when you have 3 centers or 4 centers or 5 centers. But if you have the foundation of systems in place, that's what's really going to make sure things are consistent, continue to drive your culture, and your business forward. It really is the systems.
Yeah. And that's the key to scalability anywhere, because you can't duplicate it if you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like a recipe, somebody makes a great soup. Well, how did you make that soup? I don't know. I just threw a bunch of stuff in the pot. There's no way you're going to get the same soup again. It's going to be similar. It might kind of pass, but it's not going to be exactly the same if you don't have a recipe. So those systems are that recipe. So I love that. So what has been your most rewarding part about this whole expansion journey that you've been on over the past couple of years?
I think the most rewarding part is to see my staff grow, because I'm opening new opportunities for them. As we continue to grow, I get to inspire them in new ways and challenge them in new ways. When we hold our own conference every year. So many of my staff, we don't have a lot of conferences in Northern Nevada. And so many of my staff don't experience a conference, right? So I wanted to give that. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I started doing a conference at the beginning of the school year to kick it off, right? And inspire you and get you motivated and review things that we need to do for the year where we can all be in one place. And I did that at our new location this year that wasn't quite open yet, but I staged the whole building. So I had the lights on, the atelier was all set up, which is, if you don't know Reggio, it's a workshop or a place of research. And so everything was set up and inspired so that when we came, we did this conference at the new building, and they got to see the new building, and they were so excited to be a part of that. And then when we had our open house, they wanted to come and they wanted to meet the families and do the face painting and be a part of that too. So that has been the biggest thing, is that I can show people another path or a future path, and then they can take those things and develop themselves and grow. And so now I can give new opportunities, bigger opportunities, because my business is bigger for these people. So that's my thing, my people. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah, that is an amazing feeling, especially when, you have a few that maybe have been with you long term, or they started out in a much lower position and now they're running one of your schools or something, to watch them come along. So that's amazing. And that you thought outside the box. You couldn't get them to a conference because there weren't any available, and you just did it yourself. Hey, there's some kind of a song. I did it myself. I can't remember it exactly, but it's funny. So we are about, kind of coming to the end of our time. My little timer just went up there to tell me that. We've talked a lot about, the connections that you've made with families, how you create a great experience for families, how you grow your team, how you've expanded, and some of the hurdles, that you've faced with expansion, and some of the wins. let's kind of bring it all back together. And if you could think back to maybe either the best advice that you've ever received as a business owner, or a piece of advice that you would like to impart, something that you've learned along the way. What could you say to business owners that might be struggling, they might be looking to expand, they might be facing some kind of business challenge that they want to get past and make it to the next level? What could you say to those business owners?
I think it's really important to always be working on your mindset, because your mindset really affects everything. I read a study one time that said that it was something like 85% of people navigate in a negative mindset just naturally. That's our human natural way to navigate through life, is worst case scenario. And when you really focus on that all the time, there's so much that you attract to you that is the same, because you're putting those vibrations out, and then it's what's reverberating back to you. And I think it's really important to see that, and to always be working on a positive mindset, so that you can efficiently look at something and go, okay, that did not work. This is not working. This is not going my way. But what can I learn from this, and how can I move forward from it? How can we flip this to make this work? And sometimes I know we get like, there's just no way out of this, because this is the worst thing that's ever happened. But there's always something to learn from it, and there's always a way to flip it and grow from anything that happens, whether it's good or bad. So I think mindset is very, very, very important. I started that early on. I learned that from Brian. He made me read The Slight Edge. The very first time I ever talked to him, he told me, get The Slight Edge, you need to read this. If you haven't read The Slight Edge, you need to read it. It's a game changer. Totally changed the way I was looking at things. And I haven't looked back. Like, I've always been a very positive person, but that book really changed my outlook and the way I was looking at things. So I think that mindset is the biggest thing. You've always got to be working on it.
Yeah, it is so true. I think one of my favorite quotes of all time, it's got to be in the top 10, is Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Yep. And another one, I don't know who said it, but I've heard it a bunch of times, and I think it's cool sounding saying, everything is figure outable.
Yes.
Everything is. Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head who to give credit to, but I love that saying, because it is so true. If you think you can get through it, and you can figure it out, you're going to make something happen. It might not look exactly the way it was in your mind, but you're going to get closer and closer and closer to the ideal if you just keep pushing forward and keep taking action, and know and believe in yourself, in your abilities, in your vision, that you can do it. So if you are in a struggle right now, if you are facing a hurdle, if you are facing a wall or a crisis or something, it is figure outable. There is a way to move forward. You just have to keep plugging away and find the right resources. Find somebody to help you if you need to, and keep that mindset. Know that you can do it. So thank you. Thank you for bringing that home. I think that's the kind of the perfect way to end our podcast. Christine, thank you so much for being here today. And again, if any of you are struggling or ready to expand, you're full guns blazing and you just need some help to navigate, reach out to us at Child Care Genius. We have the university. Of course, there's always free podcasts. There's lots of free webinars. We've got marketing services. There's lots of ways that we can connect and just get you through, even if it's just one strategy session to help point you in the right direction. Come check us out at childcaregenius.com. And until next week, keep plugging away. Keep making a difference. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And we will see you again back here real soon. All right. Thank you. Bye, Christine.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Childcare Genius podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please do us a favor and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a future episode. Don't forget to visit our website at childcaregenius.com to see a list of services we offer to help grow your childcare business. Until next time, thank you for being a part of the Childcare Genius community.